Hello, darling friends. Okay, so for this video, we will have a recap of the previous steps that was discussed earlier on. Well, earlier in the separate videos, you've seen the different steps into practical problem solving, and actually specifically the first 6 steps. No, for this video, we'll tackle directly to the seventh step, which is evaluating the process and the results. All right. Actually, step 7 of the practical problem solving methodology is often called the follow-up phase. No, as we evaluate both the results, countermeasure implementation, and the process itself. And in doing so, we are able to hang on for a second. So, and in doing so, we'll be able to answer questions, no, such as what actions worked, what didn't as well, and which factors contributed to the success or failure. All right. Next, during this step also, it's extremely important for us to understand what the data is saying. And to do this, we'll need to revisit things like control charts, run charts, Pareto charts, and so on. And during this step of the process, we'll work to understand also where we specifically deviated from the plan and what we learned by doing so. All right. And during this step, we'll also ask the question, was this an effective countermeasure or just luck? Since while the casino house always wins over the long term, as they say, Lady Luck might just shine on you from time to time. And so it is with our countermeasures now, which is why it's crucial to examine the situation closely. All right. Now, we also, as part of this step, go to the Gemba and verify. All right. What does that mean? Of course, in order for us to check the results and the process, we must go to the Gemba or the place the work is done in order to see with our own eyes, all right, while also talking to the people involved with the process on a day-to-day basis, no? By going to the Gemba and really listening to the people, we'll be able to learn a great deal about what's working and what isn't. Okay. And ultimately, as we evaluate things, we'll discover that we're dealing with 4 distinct possibilities. What you see on screen. As you can see, we're using the word process and countermeasure interchangeably here. So we'll either be dealing with a good process or a bad process, meaning a good countermeasure or a bad countermeasure. All right. Okay, hold on for a moment. Okay, and let me emphasize when it comes to the results of these countermeasures, they'll either be good or bad. Now, in some particular cases, well, there will be times when a bad process or countermeasure produces good results. And this is really what we call luck, pretty much like hitting the jackpot on those slot machines, no? Next, in most cases, a bad process will return bad results. And while this is not optimal, this is actually okay as long as we've learned something. And after this, we come to the quadrant when a good process returns a bad result, which really isn't possible. Okay. And yet, there may be situations where we don't understand the root cause of the problem, so we don't take the right action. But purely speaking, a good process or countermeasure will not return a bad result. And then lastly, when a good process returns a good result, we allow ourselves to celebrate for a bit. But since we're only in step 7, mind you, there's still work to do. And so we don't want to get too carried away with the celebrations, no? All right, let's now go over to the next step, which is step 8, standardizing our successes and learning from our failures. As we move into this uh, step 8 of the process, which is actually focused on, as I mentioned earlier, standardizing success and learning for failures, we're actually moving into the final stage of the PDCA cycle, and this is called ACT. This is an extremely important step, no, and also one that is glossed over with all the excitement and enthusiasm that usually occurs in the step 7 of the process. See, in many cases, we often see companies go from the check phase to a revised plan or a new plan with new targets, and they call this as the act phase, when in fact it's not act at all. So to be sure, it's absolutely critical to really spend the time standardizing, sharing, and building on our success, while also learning and growing from the failures that are unavoidable. And also, no matter what we're dealing with, success or failure, it's important to continuously ask why as we work to understand the root cause for what's working as well as what's not working. Okay? Now, what about this mountain climbing? Let's quickly go back to our topic on the PTCA cycle. You see, for most of the topics that were discussed earlier on, we've learned about the plan and do phases of the process. Another way to look at the plan and do phases is through the analogy of mountain climbing. You see, apparently, most mountain climbers spend a vast amount of time planning the climb. Okay, they double check their gear and supplies, and then they take extreme care during the actual climb. And this is pretty much similar to what we do in the plan and do phases of the PDCA. And one more thing, any mountain climber probably will tell us that getting to the summit or to the top of the mountain is optional. In other words, the climber doesn't necessarily have to keep climbing, no? If things start to go wrong, they can stop, turn around, and try another day. And so it is with PTCA. We too can stop what we're doing and regroup during the plan and do phases when things aren't going well. However, once the mountain climber has reached the summit, he or she no longer has a choice as to what to do next. Well, in fact, while it's true getting to the summit is optional, getting down is mandatory. So it is with the check and act phases of PDCA. Once countermeasures have been implemented, we must verify if they work or not, while also standardizing our successes or the particular successes and learning also from the failures. Otherwise, our countermeasures will die, just like mountaineers stranded, no, on a summit. Okay, we really need to check and learn from the climb so that we can climb again. Okay, what about yokoten? So you see, once a countermeasure has proven to work, it's critical to share it throughout the organization. But instead of sharing the success vertically, top to bottom, we'll instead work to share ideas horizontally. Okay, this horizontal deploying or copying of ideas that have worked throughout the organization is often referred to as yokoten and is a key aspect of the way companies practicing lean operate. Okay, apparently, yokoten is not a best practices or benchmarking approach per se. Instead, yokoten is horizontal, no, or more peer to peer, with the expectation that people go see for themselves and learn how another area did kaizen. Okay. um Next, we also need to take note that companies practicing yokoten usually have an expectation um, that copying a good idea will be followed by some added kaizen to that idea. All right. Okay, next we have Hensei. Um, during the during both the check and act phases of the PDCA, we also need to practice something called Hensei, and it's often translated as reflection or even repentance. Okay. In other words, practicing Hensei affords us the opportunity to truly, genuinely reflect on what went right and, more importantly, what went wrong, allowing us to learn and adapt to these issues. No, and so we can better understand what Hensei means. Let's look at the word itself. The first part of the word han means to change, okay, or turn upside down. Say is a simplified form of a character, meaning to look back upon, review, and examine oneself. Okay, so to be sure, Hansei is not the feel good part of PDCA, but it's still an extremely important part if we're to continuously improve as individuals and organizations. And there you have it, darling friends. I'll stop here for now. If you enjoy this video and you'd like to see similar videos in the future, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe to my YouTube channel down below, and hit the notification bell as well, so you don't miss out on important learning updates. Okay. Thank you and bye for now.